On my way to pick up my bead roller material, I have to pass this beautiful house on the hill here in Naples, Maine, overlooking Long Lake. That is ski slopes on that mountain. I don't know if you can make it out, but that white peak through the trees right there is Mount Washington, highest peak in the Northeast. And stunning today. The camera is not doing it justice.
Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful Saturday afternoon edition of Let's Build a Bead Roller. As you saw in the footage this morning, my buddy told me if I left my house around 10, I got to his place a little before 11, he would have everything cut out, ready to pick up. So that's what I did. Beautiful ride on a beautiful day, lots of scenery. And we had a good talk, tiny little garage in the middle of the woods with a dirt driveway, and he's whipping out cool stuff like this. He built himself one, I don't know, a couple months ago. And when he did his, he made these scalloped in, and he asked me if I wanted those. I said, nah, just cut it off straight. My thinking being, when I make the main part of the body, it has to be spaced. These are 2 inches apart in the middle. So everything I'm building is 2 inches to fit inside it. And I would start with just these 2 short pieces and make some blocks here, some blocks up there, and get the whole thing, and I can start sticking it together with just these little ones, because, when you build the second one, this is going to be second nature. When you're doing the first one, you're always trying to dream up how you're going to do it. So these are 3/16, 36-inch throat, plus a little bit sticking out. So it'll be about 40 inches, which is way overkill. It'll be if you haven't been following along, this will be a large frame bead roller for the 22mm small, inexpensive, or less expensive dies. This doesn't exist in the real world. My buddy built one. Not even knowing when he did it, I believe that he had the less expensive ones because he already had a cheap bead roller with the dies, and he just made it to fit that. And then I told him he was a genius, and hey, it probably made his day. So we got those. He cut these with his Milwaukee M18 skill saw. These are for the outside. He forgot, and we were just having a conversation because he was supplying all the stuff, to give me the 2 pieces for the throat, because you need to put strips in the throat too. So he's cutting those right now. I'll have to make another trip probably tomorrow or later tonight. I'm not sure. But hey, mistakes happen. I didn't think of it while I was there either, so I can't really lay any blame there. We got talking about everything under the sun, and you know how that goes. So the shafts, believe it or not, one's 48 inches and one is probably 6 inches longer than that. 48 inches is actually not, it'll be okay. It's just going to do what I want to do. Just barely. The shortest shaft, the one that's not driven, it's going to be okay. So 48 inches, I believe that's what the Make It Custom guy did too, Carl. I believe his shortest shaft was 48 inches as well. Again, I'm not copying his exactly, but a lot of the information he had when I watched the video, I'm kind of replaying it in my head. My shop is full of smoke right now because I decided this afternoon to try to, instead of doing the glory stuff, I figured I'd start with all the sub-assemblies that are going to take forever, and then when I actually assemble it, it hopefully is going to be more fun. It's all fun. When you start a project like this, like all projects, you're in for a ride. I mean, it's going to take 2 or 3 times longer than you dreamed it would. You can't just pop it out in a couple hours and, call it a day. There's a lot of details, and it has to be right. So the silly things take the most time. I repurposed this part of a handle. It's going to be welded eventually. I just got it stuck on there with a couple nuts. But on the upper bearing block, I made this, it's a piece of chromoly tubing with a washer welded to it, and I took a carriage bolt and ground the square out of it so it can pivot, and I'm going to be welding that on the top of the bearing block This nut will be welded to the top of the bead roller, so up and down action is direct on the thread. A lot of them, they fall down and you just push on it with a bolt, and you have to have a spring to pull it back up, or you have to pull it up manually. This will be direct acting, just like the Woodwood Fab is. Theirs is actually nicer. They cut a T-slot in it, and I could have done that too, but this, when it's installed, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So this is a handle I had off another bead roller. I just shortened it up 6 inches like the other one. This one's got a nice aluminum handle. It could be fancier, but it's fancy enough. That's going to work. But this took 2 hours, 2+ hours. I got back here around lunchtime, ate lunch with my family, and then I've been out here, and it's like 5 o'clock now. So I spent 4 hours so far, and to show my accomplishments, I built this. I took a scrap piece of steel because I was hoping with an inch and these are 1¼ OD. These are the Oilite bushings for the shafts. These are 1¼ OD. I was hoping I could finish the hole with an end mill, and it would be slightly small, you know, maybe a 2 or 3 thousandths interference fit. A drill bit, I'm afraid, would be sloppy if I even had an 1¼ drill bit, which I don't. And I could use a boring bar in the mill, but repeating that 4 times is not going to be a whole lot of fun. Be a lot of measuring. It'll be a lot slower than if I can just take my drills and get most of the hole done and then finish it with the 1¼ end mill. Now, when you're using the mill, I prick punch where I want it. I move the table X and Y and get it lined up with a little drill bit. There's other ways to do it, but this is my method. And once I have the piece in position, the only thing I can do is move the table up and down. I can't move it X and Y. X and Y is this way, Z is up and down. So I can only use the Z axis, up and down. And that allows me to drop it out, drop out the, keep changing drill bits, they get longer. I have to keep lowering the table. You get a good workout. And finally I get to the end mill, and I've been spraying it with 556, and the whole shop smells like that, and I guess most of the smoke is cleared out. What I discovered in my test piece is when I clean the burrs out of it, this will just start to push in. If I pushed it in, I'd have trouble getting it back out like that. So that's going to work perfect, and it takes a considerable amount of time to do this, but it's still faster than drilling, and then hitting it with a boring bar, and this is only a piece of 1/4 inch. So I think I'm going to finish this and eventually weld it on top of the bead roller if you ever wanted to lift it to load it into something. I've made it, and I think it would be kind of a cool feature. I'll make it round and more attractive looking, but this was my test piece, and it's going to be forever attached to my bead roller. And then this big hunk of, I believe it's 1 inch. Let me measure. Had that locked on 1 inch. Oh, no, it's inch 75 thousandths, so whatever. And the plate he gave me is 1 inch, so that's like a 12 by 12 inch block. And I could cut it on my bandsaw. It would take all afternoon to get a 2-inch strip. And then I would have to cut it into small pieces. Instead, I was fortunate enough, kind of funny, the same guy that did the cutting for me is the same guy 4 or 5 years ago on this beautiful April or May day. We bought a dumpster full of steel, and this is part of it. And I had this sitting around. Its machine's okay, so it was a lot better option than having, he gave me this so I could cut up my own piece and return what I didn't use. I'm kind of glad I didn't have to tear into that. So I got this stuff, and I've already test bored 1 block. The whole process, the first one, probably took me 20 minutes. So I got to do 3 more holes, so even that's not bad, another hour. But same deal, you knock the burrs out of it, and she starts right in the hole, so that's going to be good. I will try to, I'm not sure how it's going to work out. When you align this is the back one. This one has to be the most accurate. My shafts have to be 2 inches on center. So when I bore this, I'll mark it all out. 2 inches on center, and when I get the center of the bead roller, spaced out and tacked up, This will gonna load into the back, and then I'll have to clean the shafts up, install them so I can install the front lower gets welded in, and the front upper, of course, is going to move, so it just floats. I actually have to put some railroad tracks behind it so it can be guided up and down. Yeah, so there's lots of small details, and I'm trying to knock that out. And again, I'm 4 hours in today plus, but it feels like we're gaining. This will be a multi-part video series. I don't know, 2 or 3, maybe 4 videos. At some point, I will give you all the part numbers, but these are my gears that I got from McMaster Car, the oil light bushings, the gears, and the shaft collars. You know, they lock on either side, round collars with a set screw. All came from McMaster Car. So these will be assembled, 2 inches on center. They'll be riding back here. I have to bore these out. The description says 3/4/1 inch. Well, they come 3/4. So my options are turn the shaft down or bore these out, and this is going to be easier to bore them out. So I will do that. You know, probably in the next couple days. I don't know how much I'll get done tomorrow. I bought casters for the stand. This old steel here, again, I got out of my van that I live in down by the river. I was digging around in there, and I was going to use like 2x2 square tubing for the stand. And then I saw this 2x3, and the wheels came today, but I'm going to lay it flat. I guess it'll be the bottom, and I'll be able to just drill 4 holes and bolt them on. And these actually lock not only this way, but this way, which is pretty cool. These are kind of what Kyle had used on his for Make It Custom. And if you buy a 4-pack, they give you some cheap Chinese bolts to bolt them on with. So they're 4.8. Those are not exactly probably equivalent of grade 2, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, they're rated for 300 plus pounds a piece. So that ought to do it. And I'll be able to lock as many as I need to keep the thing from ripping around the floor on its own. Hang on. Just had a squirrel kind of trying to come visit me. So this piece of 3-inch box tubing, if you remember the LS Turbo Dot, there was 2 of these underneath for frame connectors. They weren't attached very well, but when I took them out, I saved the tubing, and that's going to be my upright. And my buddy has this cut way back here for the bracket that's going to go to my upright. Compared to the Woodward fab, which is almost dead center, it's actually kind of heavy on the motor side. We'll see. This is how his is, and it works okay. And most of the long bead rollers, because they get pretty thin out that way, and most of the weight is back here. Hopefully he's got it figured out, or we'll have to go to plan B. So this is going to be on top of my box tubing, and 2 simple holes and through bolts, 1/2 inch, which will be spaced in between. It'll be part of my 2-inch spacer system, so I can get this rig, square. His cutting is beautiful. It's not even ground. It's flawless. Even the holes don't require any hardly grinding or anything, so that's really nice. He's only got like maybe a 4x6 table, but it seems to work quite well. When you make this piece, it's not, the accuracy has to be in the shafts. This thing could be all cattywampus and still work. You wouldn't want to do that, but it's not a 10,000 RPM piece of equipment. It's just a body, and the accuracy has to come in the shafts. So, and even then, if you think about what you're doing when you're cranking it up and down, you're taking the whole upper shaft and moving it. So, there's a lot of come and go and leeway if you look at the way the cheap ones are made. This isn't, I'm trying to be as accurate as possible, but you only have to get so upset and so concerned with that. The ID of the bushings is 1 inch, and my shafts are 1 inch. Obviously, on the die end, I need to turn it down in the lathe to 22 millimeter, and I will tap the end, M10 1.5, like that is. I'm going to cut, again with the mill, a flat spot for your set screws in the bead roller die to lock it, so it's not going to slip. It can't jump up over the flat spot. So that locks them in pretty good, but I'm going to machine a flat spot, you know, maybe 4 inches long or more, so I could adjust the dies. They make your fancy bead rollers. They have adjustable shafts. They have a collar that spins in and out, and you still put the bolt in the end so you can offset your dies. Well, I could just do that with the set screws, or make spacers and still use the bolts. Either way, I want options, so I'm going to give myself quite a bit of, you know, space to do that. On the business end, on the drive end, it doesn't matter which shaft you power. I have to make my own motor mount anyway. My plan for that is to make a small round adapter that goes on the shaft, and on the motor I'll take the Lovejoy coupler right out and I'll shove the motor on. It'll hang right there, and then I'll be able to make the bracket. It's kind of what I did when I powered the other ones. Take some of the guesswork out of it if the motor's actually in alignment and you just have to make a bracket to hold it from spinning around. So I'll have to machine the drive end to whatever size the coupler is. I don't know if it's actually 22 millimeter or 1 inch or 3/4. I don't remember. It's covered up with a shield on the Woodward Fab one, so when I haven't taken the new drive out of the box, it's right there. So things I didn't drag out because there's enough junk going on already is the Eastwood table, you know, work table. It kind of looks like the body of these. You know, it'll be turned in the opposite direction, but it's a similar shape as this, maybe slightly bigger. And I had another stand, but I'm obviously not going to use it. I want to build something ruggeder and easier to work with. This one would be, I bought another set of casters to attach to that, but it's not a favorable size the way they made the X on the bottom. That's just a bad design. But hey, what do you want for $150? Anyway, so that is today's progress so far. So in the next video, likely tomorrow, I'll update you on how much I get done. I don't know when I have to go back up and get the other pieces of strips. I don't have any 2-inch flat bar around. If I did, I would use it for the whole thing probably. These I have to grind them to make sure they're perfectly 2-inch. Down that way, they're pretty much 2-inch until about here, then they get a little bit wide, which is better than skinny. So I'll have to adjust those a little bit. I don't know why he didn't cut them on the table. Don't know. Anyway, that's it for now. Catch you tomorrow, probably.